This is not the feeling of having found an answer. It is the feeling of no longer needing one. The shift does not announce itself. There is no internal click, no moment you could point to and say this is when it happened. You simply notice that something familiar is no longer doing what it used to do. The forward pull that once lived quietly beneath your thoughts is absent. Not resisted. Not replaced. Just not there. Questions still appear, but they arrive without momentum. They do not lean into you. They do not ask to be followed. They rise and fall like sounds you hear but do not turn toward. What once felt unfinished no longer registers as incomplete. This does not feel like clarity. It feels like a neutral settling, as if pressure quietly released without needing permission. The search depended on that pressure. Without it, there is nothing to activate. You remain inside this moment, noticing that nothing is asking you to move. Before this, searching felt responsible. It gave uncertainty a role. It turned not knowing into motion. There was always another layer to examine, another explanation that might finally resolve the background tension you carried. Even exhaustion felt purposeful. The search did not require hope, it only required continuation. As long as something in you leaned forward, it stayed alive. Now, that organizing force is missing. Not replaced by confusion, but by a lack of orientation toward what comes next. You may still recognize the language of old questions, but they arrive without weight. They do not position themselves as obligations. Stillness no longer feels suspicious. Rest does not need justification. The internal map that once demanded progress has faded, and yet nothing feels lost. The absence of direction does not create panic because there is no urgency to arrive elsewhere. You are not holding this stillness in place. It is holding itself. You can sense this shift most clearly in how little effort it takes to remain where you are. Before, not searching required discipline. It felt like something you had to remember to do. There was always a background readiness to check, refine, understand one more layer. Now that readiness does not activate. You are not choosing to stay. You simply do not feel the impulse to leave. Information still appears, but it does not reorganize you. Ideas pass through without becoming projects. Experience completes itself without being converted into insight. There is less internal movement after contact. Less urgency to extract meaning. The system no longer treats incompleteness as a threat. And without that threat, the search has nothing to protect against. This is subtle, easy to miss. But once noticed, it does not reverse. In daily life, this shows up as an unexpected ease with not knowing. A question can remain open without demanding closure. A choice can stay unresolved without creating pressure. Conversations do not need to finish cleanly. Books can remain unread. Thoughts can stay half-formed without pulling you forward. This is not avoidance. Avoidance carries tension. This feels neutral. The old pattern depended on completion to justify itself. Gaps triggered movement. Now the gaps remain, and nothing steps in to close them. You live inside them without discomfort. Sometimes the mind checks for orientation out of habit. A brief scan for what comes next. It ends quietly when nothing presents itself as necessary. There is no conclusion drawn from this. No effort to return to stillness. The checking simply does not find a task. And because nothing is assigned, nothing mobilizes. The thoughts that still arise have a different texture now. They do not arrive as invitations. They arrive as echoes. Familiar ideas surface without pulling you into them. There is no internal debate about whether to follow them. They simply do not feel required. This is not suppression. Suppression creates friction. This is disinterest without judgment. The search relied on fascination, the promise that the next idea might finally deliver something essential. When fascination dissolves, the mechanism cannot restart. You are not choosing to stop searching. The promise itself no longer captivates you. Occasionally, a soft doubt drifts through. What if staying here means missing something? The question appears without ignition. It does not recruit energy. It fades because nothing organizes around it. The engine checks itself and finds no connection. This change is registered in the body before it is named in thought. Searching was never purely mental. It lived as a readiness, a forward lean, a subtle restlessness that prepared you to move toward the next understanding. Now that posture softens. You can encounter uncertainty without tightening, silence without bracing. Even when information appears that once would have triggered another cycle, the body remains settled. Breathing stays even. Attention stays local. Without physiological mobilization, the loop has nowhere to root. The body does not signal the need to go elsewhere, and the mind does not follow. Experiences complete themselves. Questions do not linger as unfinished business. Uncertainty remains light. The residue the search depended on is gone. Life moves on without dragging inquiry behind it. There is no new meaning that replaces the search. The mind may expect one, a belief, a conclusion, something stable to stand on. But what stabilizes you now is the absence of that demand. You are not supported by an answer. You are supported by the lack of a question that needs resolution. Time softens. Waiting loses its charge. The future no longer holds completion. The past no longer asks to be decoded. You are not standing in time as a problem to solve. You are simply inside it. Identity quiets. There is less effort to become, less need to narrate growth. Depth remains, but it is no longer performed. Nothing is being held open. Nothing is being closed. The search does not end dramatically. It stops being available. And what remains feels ordinary, steady, and sufficient, continuing without needing to be named.